going on with me. I mean, I just felt helpless and angry.
Yeah.
I was telling Bill this too on the phone the other day. I told him I'm reading this book. I even text Johnny too. I told him I've been reading Shannon's book, Johnny, and I'm just pissed.
Yeah. I know I'm really sensitive actually, in other ways, too, emotionally, and like highly empathetic. And so I do tend to want to share those kind of stories to reach other people on that level.
Absolutely.
Which I think we have to. I think, information can only go so far. People process it differently, can go in one ear and out the other. But what touches us, if you have any humanity remaining, is the emotional aspect of things. And that's been used against us. We're constantly manipulated that way.
There in the temple, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and pigeons, and also the money changers sitting at their tables.
Hold on. I'm setting up my little ghetto car studio, and I forget how I did this with, hold on.
Nice little green screen background there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get, hold on, I'm going to put it in the door. Okay, there we go.
There
a little bit better.
All right. Well, Shannon, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shannon. My name's James.
And
Hi,
that's
James.
James, the voice you hear there. He's on a landline because he can't get on the, because of the Wi-Fi situation.
Oh, sure.
I don't have the video, so.
So
that's all right.
But it's an honor. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
So how
Glad
are
to
things?
meet you.
So how are things up there in well, just south of me?
I know.
Is it snowing yet?
It's supposed to be, unfortunately, again, after it all just melted, after we were snowed in for 3 weeks, and we finally got out, and I went out like 3 times in the past week. I was so anxious to get out again. And I went out again yesterday, had a nice long bike ride in town by the water, and got a lot of food supplies again because it says it may snow up, like, because we're at a high enough elevation in the mountains that we may get the snow, whereas the rest may not. But so we're getting prepped for it. It's just starting to rain and gone cooler, so I think we'll be okay for sound. It's just drizzling right now. So.
Yeah, you sound really good, and your picture looks really good too. So
good. Okay.
So we're doing really good, and what I'd like to do is James, James is a big sufferer, and he got a hold of a copy of your book, and he's been reading it, and so have I. And I tell you, the chapter on the suicides, that really got to me. And then the next chapter, you kind of started talking about nature and all this, and then all of a sudden you kind of gradually put in a little humor there to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. So
yeah, I did
but
try.
The information is so good, and we really need to really get this message out there, and that's why I wanted to get you on. And I know we have a very limited time, and of course we can always schedule another time too, but my main
I'm actually
focus
okay for a while, if you guys are, I had to wait to get the car back. So I've got it, and yeah,
Right. So,
I get hungry for dinner,
yeah,
basically.
well, I'm not
I'll
like
eat
Johnny. I
too.
won't keep you 3 hours. So,
Okay.
It's after 7 over here, so I already had dinner.
Oh,
so yeah,
wait, where?
James is in
Oh.
Texas. And so,
Okay.
James,
Yeah.
since we have you on, I don't know how long you'll be able to handle. I know you're on a landline, but I really wanted to get you guys together and have Shannon share with James, her maybe some tips and stuff. But we'll start with James. You had a couple of you had a couple of questions for her, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Fire away.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
I didn't so much have questions. I know I wanted to talk to you about. Well, I've been hanging around Johnny and the crew and working with them for a while, probably since the summer of 19. I joined their team just recently in October. I did an interview with Johnny, and Bill was like, "Why don't you come and work with us?" And I was like, yeah, and I knew I was sensitive to the phone back when the Corona hoax busted out. That's when I first started noticing it, probably around sometime that summer, late in the summer. I got the clamped head and all the symptoms that you talk about. And I had to tell Bill after a while, I can't do these meetings anymore because I was doing them on my Android phone. And just trying to make a long story short, it's such a journey. I got real ill and got Corona hoax diagnosed, and it was just a big mess. And I started feeling better after I gotten hospitalized because I drank a lot of water during this time, and I lowered my sodium level, so I ended up in the hospital with a very low sodium level. And I've just spent the last few months getting back to normal. And when I during this time, I got your book and was completely blown away, Shannon. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for everything that you've done and what you've put together there. It is, other than the Bible, I would say one of the most important books to read.
Wow, that's
in the top 3, if not number 1 right now.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, it really touches me that it's helping somebody, I mean, I still don't know what kind of reach I'll have or anything, but to me, that's not as important as like just helping one person is worth it to me.
Yeah, I started hanging around the Resistance Rising crew, and I was so inspired by them and all the information that they've been bringing to the table. And they're really like real live modern day superheroes come to life to me. And I feel the same way about you and John Hamner. When you guys first interviewed with Johnny, I've been fans since. I've been meaning to get a Welcome to the Masquerade for quite some time. But Bill and I were just talking about, these books we want to get.
Yeah.
I have a whole stack of them over here.
Yeah. I'm going to overwhelm you soon with another like 750 pager that I'm just finishing. So
well,
yeah.
I was never much of a reader in the past, but after hanging around this crowd, I blasted through half your book already. I've had it only for a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
And it's really inspired me, especially this is really spiritual to me too. I'm a Christian, and that's a lot of the reason why I hang around the resistance. And when I started halfway feeling better the other day, I went back to work. I take care of my elderly mom and work part-time, and I went to my part-time job with somebody blasting a different type of phone there, I guess. And I walked out of there just re-exposed. And since right now, since I got out of work Sunday night, I've been nursing myself, grounding, doing Epsom salt. I started apple cider vinegar earlier this morning. I had a headache. I've had the headache and I started apple cider vinegar the first time this morning since I got sick in December, and went to the hospital because I couldn't do the apple cider vinegar for any kind of detox. I was worried about my sodium level. It acts kind of like a diuretic.
Right.
And I walked out of work Sunday night so depressed, Shannon. I was like, are we back to square? Just feeling better. Is this how it's going to be? And I was like, job this and all this stuff's going through my head. And blah, blah, what are we going to do? And I start reading your book, and oh my gosh, I got so inspired. And by Monday afternoon, I was like, you know what, the heck with it. You know, I really started thinking about you, and I was reading that story in your book about Jenny Fry. I was really getting pissed. And I was like, I'm just going to, because Bill had been talking to getting together and speaking with you for quite some time. We didn't know what I was going to do because of my sensitivity.
Right.
And I really started thinking about it the more I read your book. I'm like, I'm just going to muscle through it. I got to do something about this. I feel helpless. I feel really pissed off. But, I've been reading stories in your book, and I've been very encouraged and getting a lot of juice back. And I really want to thank you, ma'am, for that.
Oh, great. Well, I do want to say, and first, I mean, of course, I relate to what you're going through, unfortunately, and a lot of people do. Growing numbers of people. I mean, the good thing is you're recognizing, identifying the cause, because, and this is, I think, like, it's not the only reason for the hoax, the pandemic hoax, but it's a big reason because they expected the fallout with 5G. There's a fallout like with each new generation of wireless, and there's new exposures. There's always some kind of collateral damage. They were anticipating it. They needed a scapegoat. So all these COVID symptoms, especially what they're now calling long COVID, they are completely aligned with, electromagnetic radiation damage, and those symptoms. So there's no, it's just like, I read those and I'm like, yeah, exactly all that I've experienced, those symptoms.
Yeah, it seems pretty never ending. But I did notice, I did want to point out before I forgot, I was reading on page, what page is this? I had it dog-eared. Page 200. I love what this said here, is that in 2019, France banned Wi-Fi from all kindergarten and nursery school classrooms. I mean, it's interesting how you can take a product, even our food products, and if you look at a label from Europe, it only had like ketchup. A bottle of ketchup is a good example. It only has 3 or 4 ingredients. But then if you get a bottle of ketchup, the same brand, even the same brand, and it's like a paragraph of garbage. And it's just, it just seems weird that other countries like GMOs have outlawed. So why can't we do the same thing here in the States? It just seems like our country, it seems like other countries are more wise, and we're supposed to be the number one country in the world, but we're not.
I know it exactly. And that's just because the industries have paid Congress, a lot of money to keep the hush funds, to keep quiet about all these problems. I mean, they're constantly paying off the FDA, all the regulatory bodies. It just shows our level of corruption is that high. I mean, although European countries have their own problems because of the EU, and they're not exempt of a lot of the problems we're dealing with. And they certainly, while they're making some strides towards, lowering EMF in places, it's so much more crowded that we still have the advantage in our country of space. So even if you're there, it's like, okay, you can't get away from it as easily if you're really sensitive. And James, I wanted to say before I forget about this, because you mentioned the electrolytes, and how you crashed with that. Yeah, I mean, that's so common because the EMFs themselves are affecting, like, the calcium levels. So they directly impact like electrolytes, right? And so it's common for people who are experiencing these symptoms or like the electrosensitivity, if you want to call it, or I would say microwave injury, to have a lot of trouble like keeping the electrolytes balanced, right? Especially like sodium, potassium, also calcium, magnesium. It's really challenging. So, but more people are going to have this because there's so many reasons that's happening now, but definitely the EMF exposures. But be careful. Yeah, definitely. You've learned your lesson, but be careful with copious amounts of water because of that. Adding minerals is helpful. Drinking spring water. I was went through, I mean, this is, I'm 8 years, almost 9 years in, right, with this journey. So for me,
Yeah.
I noticed that my kidneys got affected in that I was having like swelling, edema, and also gout symptoms. So the problem is I try all these different diets for detox. I'd go to different naturopaths even. They put me on keto, and keto was like kind of disastrous because I was already underweight, and then I lost even more weight. And I was talking with this naturopath, and I'm like, I'm 6 feet tall, I'm 120 pounds. That's really worrying me. I don't know if I should continue on this diet,
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And he just didn't seem concerned enough. I finally dropped him, but and it gets
Right.
really confusing when you start trying to like supplement everything and then try to balance the stuff because one supplement kind of throws off the other thing. So I was having a lot of mineral salts. Like I was adding, I thought I could just add like Celtic sea salts to my food, as much as I wanted. But I found that for me personally, I had to actually really cut back on salt, like really cut back,
Yeah.
and that helped a lot with the whole situation. But I'm also now living by the coast, and I get the salt kind of in the air. I go surfing, I'm in the water. So, everybody's salt requirements are going to vary depending on where you are. But I would experiment with actually, I mean, seem counterintuitive, but actually reducing salt intake in your diet, especially anything that says salt in the food isn't,
Oh,
I've learned that salt is a crazy concoction of chemicals, and it's
Right.
not even just like, it's actually from petroleum oil flakes most of the time, and then it's bleached, and they add like, you can have sugar added, you can have a bunch of different chemicals. There was something, I forgot what, besides the iodine. And iodine, we need iodine, but you can overdo it easily as well. And,
Yeah.
of course, it's also high sodium. So it's really difficult because most all packaged foods have salt added. And what's really hard is
Right.
finding cheese. I have not found cheese without salt. And I
Right.
like to eat cheese. So that's the only salt intake I've had that's like I don't really want to be having, but I do add a little bit of cheese to my diet. So,
I'm lactose, so you don't want me eating no cheese.
Yeah.
right, okay, don't
Yeah.
do that. Yeah,
That's the
Uh,
thing, about this salt thing.
yeah,
And I've been on that keto diet too. What I don't like about the keto diet is they want you to eat a lot of meat, and I'm not
yeah,
much of a meat eater.
right.
The
Yeah,
the only meat I enjoy is chicken.
yeah.
And sometimes fish. I'll eat
Hmm.
tuna and stuff like that. But on the subject of salt, um, there was a question in the chat, and I forgot to tell you that we are live on
Okay,
Odyssey,
that's
and
fine.
we
A lot
have
of
one
people.
person in the chat is asking, she would like to ask Shannon if what you know and think about the 12 essential cell salts.
Oh, I think I know what he or she's referencing. I'm not sure. I don't really have any experience or anything to say about it, but I mean, that might be a good idea. I think that's probably similar to trace minerals. I think maybe add it to your water or something.
Mhm.
I
Well,
would
that's what
anything
I
with
do on
salt.
occasion. On
Yeah.
occasion, when I drink water, I'll put a little bit of pink Himalayan salt.
Hmm.
Is the only salt we have in the house is the pink
Right.
Himalayan
Yeah, I eat a
salt.
lot of that
We
too.
don't eat a lot of it, but I do put it on like my eggs
Hmm.
and all that stuff, and in my water. But I'm because I have a lot of salt,
Yeah.
especially when I sweat. When I do sweat in the
Well, that's the
summertime,
thing. You want some salt when you're sweating, because then
right?
you're in danger of,
Because
yeah.
you got
So
to
I would
replenish. You got to replenish what's
exactly.
coming out.
I think anything you do, I would just like do it. Don't overdo it. Always just do a pinch of something. Like I add a pinch of kelp uh, powder to my food
Mhm.
most days. But sometimes I notice I had been put on iodine supplements a long time ago. Again, a lot of people are well-meaning, these doctors, naturopaths and everything. And I'm totally more in favor of naturopaths than say like allopathic, medicine doctors, of course, but they're often like still approaching medicine the way an allopathic doctor would, like in this kind of mega dosing on things and, just not, I don't know, overdoing it, so they put me on high levels of iodine. At first it helped a lot of things, and then it threw me the other way, and I got goiter, and then I got like dependent on it, and I had to wean off of it. So now ever since then, I'm super sensitive to iodine, like, so I have to, so like if I have a little too much kelp, then start to get this lump in my throat feeling, like I can't swallow or something. So yeah, you have to be cautious. But I wanted to say too, like minerals, in terms of minerals, like if you can get to hot spring for a soak or do Epsom salt baths, these have really saved, like really helped people. And I think I've written about that in the book, some of my friends, and that's helped me a lot. And I also just want to say to James and anybody else who's just kind of the beginning of dealing with this, there definitely is light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a death sentence. It feels like it. I'm doing a lot better, even though all this stuff is still encroaching, and I'm like, I've also been practicing a lot of avoidance, and I live out in the middle of nowhere. However, there is a cell tower that we can, you could get reception from up if you go up the hill. But we're just down enough in a dip, in a kind of valley, that where we are free of the signals there. We're actually free of like all signals there, which is really shocking. Like, it was hard to find that. But I think what's really helped me at the new location is being off grid. I want to say something about being off grid, because off grid can mean a lot of different things. And the problem is, if you're like in an off grid community, you may find that there's a lot of dirty electricity from generators from neighbors, or they have massive solar, the inverters and things. And those are just as bad as having a smart meter and being on grid, so you have to be aware of that. And it's really overwhelming at first, all this information, but I mean, knowledge is power. And the more you educate yourself about it, the more you can actually do something. So we're finally in the location where we only have like a tiny solar panel, and then we charge our batteries in the winter with the car, or like at somebody's place, it has grid power. Right. We're trying to work on like a hydro something for the winter, but even then we wouldn't have, like we'd make sure it was away from us, and we would, we're not like, what I'm trying to get to is like, you don't want to, the best thing if you can is to not have like, I know a lot of people, everybody's going to have this mostly, but I'm just saying what's helped me the most is not having any electricity in the house, in terms of like, there's no power to the house. So we can't be like have the cage effect by having all the wires in the house pick up stuff. Right. So there's no electricity, which means like we just use these little batteries, the Jackery batteries, to power laptops, and we use candles and flashlights. And that is literally all the electricity we use. And I've finally gained weight again after the couple years I've been out here like this off grid. When I was still on grid in Arizona, I still had this problem with not being able to keep any weight on, kept like, looked like I was starving. Even though I was feeling better in a lot of other ways, and like definitely improving by not having the wireless radiation, I still had like dirty electricity problems with the house. And we had such a problem, remedying that, it was an ongoing thing. So I know it's not really the most practical thing for most people, but I want to say that's my experience. That's been helping me the most. Now because of that, I can go into our town. It's a small town, but there's towers everywhere. Right. And I go into stores, and I can handle the Wi-Fi. I can handle people near me, as long as like they don't put their phone right up to me. I can handle some of that for a while. I do notice things like, still after a day in town, I kind of have a harder time falling asleep. I get kind of wired from it, and then today's the next day. I was in town yesterday, and you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm still like a little fatigued, but I have enough time away from it, enough recovery time, and that's really essential. Mostly what's essential is good sleep and repairing. But, people have different levels of this. And I've heard of people who are okay with, as long as they get away for like a few weeks a year, camping, or even going to Green Bank or whatever, a month in Green Bank, they can like go back to their lives and handle it. I mean, right. I've heard of that. I don't know those people personally. Other friends of mine, there's just different levels of remediation and things that works right. for them. Not all people do the extreme that I do in terms of coping. I mean, so, they find other ways, but I do know a lot of people who were really you know, on the Ed, like Bruce's story in my book, like he wanted to kill him. He was going to kill himself, you know,
Yeah.
and he's doing great now. And he's not having all the symptoms he used to have. He's doing a lot better. I mean, he still
Right.
lives in a remote location and everything, but he can, like me, he can go to town. He can, you know, have a little bit more of a life that he left, you know, that he's not as much of a hermit anymore. So,
Right.
Is he the gentleman that has the radiationrefugee.com?
yeah, that's
Very
him.
interesting story. Very, very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce is a really interesting guy, and he's a freedom fighter. You know, he's been fighting, like he's been occupying. He was very active about the EMF issue, but he's been focused on, you know, he's in Australia, so he's been focused on all the tyranny there and the police. He's been arrested several times, and you know, he's like suing the police and
Wow. Well, sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And you know, with some people like me, I'm constantly in front of the on my job doing this, and I do a lot of video editing. So I'm barraged. I mean, my wife has Google Home all over her house and everything.
Yeah.
But for people even like me, I mean, I think I'm slightly sensitive because I do have the tinnitus. I do get the headaches after being in, you know, when I spend too much time. Also, when I do my laptop, I finally took the Faraday. I took the Faraday cage, and James has done this. James ordered some for his. I remember when he had his cell phone when he was on one time. He had his cell phone wrapped in this. But what I did is I made a little, and inside is my laptop, and I keep it. I always keep it, you know. And sometimes some things you can do, like at night when you're sleeping, turn off the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You know, or
Simple
go
things.
hardwire. You know, I'm in a situation where I can't do a hardwire. If I could, I would. But you know, I think eventually it's going to affect me. And that's why I take camping trips a lot. And I try to go as far off the grid as possible. We have some rustic cabins that we go to that are way out in the country. And sometimes you just need that. I mean, I think everybody needs that just to get
Everybody
a break.
needs it.
Because I think in some ways, everybody is affected by this.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is my opinion. I just read this book by Bryce Taylor, and her life story is just heart-wrenching, what she went through. And when she went through the MK Ultra mind control, they used a lot of electronic devices. They used like the VR with the goggles and everything. And I think what they're trying to do with all this Wi-Fi and 5G, I think back in her day, I think they just experimented on a large group of people. Now they want to do it worldwide with all this 5G, but they're not realizing that it's creating side effects. It's making people sick. It's not, and you know, I mean, who knows? Maybe some of the people, you know, what you talk about, like I said in the book, you have, and I'm going to show this precious lady here.
Oh yeah.
You could see it there. I mean, it just, I had a hard time getting through the chapter. You know, it's hard to read when you got tears in your eyes. You know? But
I teared up a couple times myself.
I think there's even a darker side. I think in some cases, I think the extreme is not just suicide. I think some people go mentally insane and will kill people. Yeah. But the problem is nobody wants to link it to all this technology. Oh, we need this technology. This is how we grow. This is how we make money, how we do this and do that. But little do they realize that they're destroying people's lives, not just people.
Well,
animals,
I mean,
as well.
The military knows this. I mean, they've been using radio frequencies, like you said, in experiments for a really long time. It's not a coincidence that all this technology was rolled out at just directly following mind control experiments. Other experiments too. I mean, just physical, experiments on people. The brain doctors of the 1950s from the Macy's conference group, they were the cyberneticians, they called themselves. They were the first people putting deep, electrodes deep into the brain to stimulate. Dr. Jose Delgado, who remote controlled the bull I mentioned in my book, but I'm getting a little bit more into this topic in my current book. But basically, they were remote controlling animals and people and sending them. I mean, it's not a perfect system at all. And that's the thing, they always underestimate people, and they want to think of us as machines and control us that way, but we aren't, and so it always backfires, I think. And so we have to remember that in a positive way. A lot of the plans they have for us will fail because they don't understand what humans are, because I think the people doing this are not really humans in a way. They've lost their humanity completely. They've lost touch with it. So, they want to control us. They have their, weird reasons, and they don't have empathy anymore. And they like to think of us as like machines, like I said, and and I think mostly they want us to think of ourselves that way, so that in a kind of because hypnosis is so powerful and suggestion is so powerful that even if we believe it, then it's more achievable for them. So they have to kind of use the technology in conjunction with hypnosis, which is what media is, and then they can get that full level control. At least they hope to. But most of these experiments where they thought they were doing one thing with somebody's brain and curing them of something led to the opposite, just like a lot of pharmaceutical medicines, like the thing they're supposed to cure that it creates. And the same thing with these implants. Now they're the brain. What we're seeing today is like Elon Musk's Neuralink brain chip. He's trying to FDA actually rejected his application for human trials, which I thought was funny. But it wasn't even because, because the FDA is really corrupt. It was only because the FDA was angry at Musk because he's criticizing them all the time. So it had nothing to do with like ethics, And
I know. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
right. Like, yeah. So FDA doesn't care. Right. They're just have a thing about, they probably want Musk to pay them a little more or something,
Yeah,
who
it's
knows?
all money driven.
Yeah. I mean, right. Because there's another company that's competing with him that did get approval for human trials, so it's happening. They've been doing this with the chips, and it's the same stuff they're doing in the 50s. And it says it'll be charged wirelessly. I mean, it's going to be used as a wireless component with the cloud, connecting to AI and the Internet of Things and everything. And somehow they're trying to sell people on this. And some people will sign up because they're young, they think it sounds cool, they don't understand, they haven't learned to distrust these people and these organizations. Unfortunately, there will be young people who are like already are signing up for implants, in their hands, like to scan things, to paper things, to open their garages or whatever. But there's always, first of all, you have a foreign object being injected into your body that you're always going to, risk rejecting. I mean, your body, as a wise system, it's intelligent, has its own intelligence, and knows it's not supposed to be there. So what they call side effects is really about is your body trying to reject this stuff. But then it's just a nightmare, because I know, I was gonna say that it's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I mean, this is never going to be biologically compatible, like they say.
It doesn't, because it creates so many problems. I mean, they were doing this back in the 60s. I'm looking in Bryce Taylor's book, and I found that quote I was looking for.
Okay.
It says, interestingly, during the 1960s, the USC School of Engineering was transformed into a major research facility and expanded into several new areas, including biomedical engineering. Today, the engineering schools boast of several academic departments and research centers. One such research facility is the Center for Neural Engineering, which lists among the research activities, number one, hardware models of the hippocampus toward brain implants, like you were mentioning, as neural prosthesis for memory loss. They want these people that, they want them to do things, but then after they're done, they forget. That's why some people don't remember when they commit a
Mhm.
crime. That's why when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot in
Mhm.
that parking garage by that I can't remember the
Ruby.
guy's Ruby,
Yeah.
he didn't realize he did it. Same thing with Sirhan. So
That's
I
right.
think David Berkowitz too. He have
and
like
David Berkowitz
Mhm.
didn't have, so they designed the memory loss. Number 2 was USC Brain Project, and 3 USC DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, Ultra Scale Computing Project, to name a few. Apparently, the USC Brain Project is sponsored by the National Institute of Mental Health and the
Yes.
National
That's true.
Aeronautic and NASA. It is also worth mentioning that DARPA's project involves hybrid neuron silicon computation systems for pattern recognitions, which includes the interface of electrode arrays and hippocampal tissue slices and
Mhm.
neuron cultures, as well as growth techniques for cortical neurons on silicon substrates. I'm struggling
Yeah.
with all these crazy words, but as you can see, they've been planning on this,
Oh, it's a
since
long time. Yeah, they're
for
not
a
letting
long
go of this
time,
plan. And this is still, it's been updated.
and
I've
it's
looked
still
at the,
going on. It's
oh,
still going on.
it's just more advanced. Everything's gotten smaller, so-called less invasive, but actually they call them invasive devices, not implants. That's what NIH calls them, or NIH, or NIM, the mental health institution. They call it invasive devices. And so and DARPA is still involved. So this is all military contracts with
Right.
Government agents, supposedly for public health reasons. What's really, when you said something, the thing about memory, what's really interesting to me is that they're actually trying to sell people on these chips and saying that they could erase your memories and it would be good for you because they want to cure PTSD by erasing memories. And people who are still human are questioning this and saying the ethics of it and saying, isn't that interfering with your human experience, which is to grow and learn from your experiences? How do you learn from them if your memories are erased? And how, I mean, this is what's happening already with drugs. There's a lot of drugs that
Right.
contribute to memory loss. And people who repeat behavior patterns and get sucked into vicious cycles tend to have some degree of memory loss, right? And that's why you're repeating bad behavior and you keep hurting yourself. It's not going to prevent somebody from experiencing trauma again if they can't remember earlier trauma and learn from it. I mean, it's better to process that and do something constructive with that processing and get therapy for that, talk therapy or something, because otherwise and of course what implication of that is that other memories could be erased, that you're not aware of them doing that when you consent to having memories erased, or maybe they can't do it so precisely. I doubt that this is a precision thing because they still don't really know where your memories are or how that works. And
Right.
and it's memory just in the brain. I mean, your body remembers, your spirit remembers. You're still going to experience a reaction to something physically that is linked to a previous trauma without being able to comprehend it if you lost your memory of it. A lot of people
Absolutely.
already blank out as a protective measure. We do this anyway if it's really traumatic. Children do that all the time, and the disassociation and everything. So, I mean, that's just a ridiculous reason for saying that this is good research, is going to help people. I mean, come on. And everybody should be completely freaked out at this point that they're saying that
Right.
they're going to try to erase your memories using radio frequencies. Oh,
Right.
don't
I
worry
know
about the
Yeah,
where's
I've been
what you're
getting,
talking about
Right,
Willis
James.
moment here.
What's
You
that,
know?
James?
I mean, where's what you're talking about Willis moment here? Is anybody saying this? What do you mean
Yeah.
erasing memory?
right.
And
Yeah.
Right. And I'm beginning to wonder if they created dementia or Alzheimer's. Because if you notice, some of these people, even like Reagan and Charlton Heston and many of these people who, according to Bryce Taylor, was involved in this MK Ultra, they were controlled themselves, all the
Sure.
presidents and everything. And so to get them not to remember all this stuff,
Yeah.
create.
I always thought
dementia.
that Reagan was given Alzheimer's. I always thought
Right.
that
I
because
agree.
he would spill the beans at the
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
I
agree.
always thought that, guys, even before Enlightenment.
Oh,
God,
oh yeah, I did too. I saw that was suspicious as well before any of this happened to me. And
you know
there's
what I
something,
mean? I mean, just the common person that don't know nothing is still kind of like, it's still so obvious, you know, they're even just, I don't know, maybe we were, just, I don't know. You were talking about them planning and doing these things, planning, and like
Yeah.
you wrote in your book, Shannon, that act Bill Clinton signed, the Telecommunications Act, we
Mhm.
can't, you know, right there shows that it's all by design.
Oh yeah, that was 1996. Yeah, disallows any objection to wireless infrastructure on the grounds of health. Why would
Yeah.
you? Yeah, if it didn't cause health problems, why would you, sign an act that forbade anybody to object to it based on health? That doesn't make any sense otherwise.
That's about as makes much as sense when he got up there and said, "We are sorry that our government experimented on people
Oh
with
yeah,
this MK Ultra mind control."
yeah,
When he was mind controlled himself, I mean, he
Who
was.
was this, Clinton?
That
Yeah.
was Clinton, and Clinton had said that. Yeah.
Oh my
And-
Well, there's something called digital dementia. They actually medically they're saying digital dementia, and that kids in their 20s are getting digital dementia. They're acknowledging that these devices are causing some kind of dementia, but radio frequency exposures are linked to, microwaves are linked to Alzheimer's and autism and, dementia. And look at the increase of these things like alongside with it, they coincide. And they also coincide with vaccination programs. I think there's multiple things going on that are actually happening at the same time on purpose, because I think they're supposed to work in concert, because these mind control experiments use drugs, use pharmaceuticals, and used radio frequencies, right? And isolation and hypnosis and in brain implants. You don't really have to have the electrodes in your brain to have parts of your brain destroyed by radiation.
Right.
That can still happen.
Well, even
but
in our foods,
yeah,
certain types of
and
foods will do
foods.
that too.
Fluoride,
Fluoride.
and so, I mean, water fluoridation, that's ridiculous. That program doesn't make any sense at all, except
Well,
if
neither
you get
does
it from
chlorine.
and chlorine
Yeah,
too.
chlorine
It doesn't
too.
make any sense unless you look at it from the perspective of it destroying the pineal gland, which is like the seat of your sixth sense awareness, your hyper awareness of things, like it protects you, right? And people see it as a spiritual thing. And so it's
Well, it's
just
the same thing with the frontal lobe.
frontal lobe, right?
When the frontal lobe, I mentioned this in Johnny's show this morning, was if anything is tapped into the frontal lobe, it affects the person because that's where your decision making is.
Right. That's right.
And you're, it's what keeps you sane. And
well,
if it's
critical
damaged
thought.
in any way, if it's
Yeah.
damaged, there was a Civil War veteran who was shot in the forehead and lived, but
Mhm.
his frontal cortex was damaged, and he became a homicidal maniac. He became a murderer. And so, that's how I think a lot of these people who have been either been experimented on or whatever happened to them.
Yeah.
And of course, what we're talking about here with this EMFs is that it's working on the frontal lobe to
Right.
change people. And
Well, it
bad
interferes with
ways.
the ability to critically think.
Right,
To think
right.
critically.
Mhm.
And that's why we're seeing so many people just not objecting to the stuff going on. You think, why aren't they seeing this? And because they've forgotten they can't think critically. They just like repeat what they hear in the media. They don't think about it. They just go along with it. And that's what the controllers want, is us just to be dutiful drones that don't question. And questioning authority, that's become, do you know that in New Zealand they're calling a new kind of domestic terrorist is an anti-authority person. Somebody who's against authority is a terrorist now, right? I mean, and they're including people who are against vaccines, who are what they're calling conspiracy theorists, who are questioning all these agendas. they're making it like a criminal offense to question their corruption. I mean, that's a frightening move.
It is.
And they're trying to get the people who have had their frontal lobes destroyed to call in and and to rat out people, like to say, tell us if your friends or family are acting differently. Are they reading conspiracy stuff? Are they criticizing the government? Are they? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I laugh, but I shouldn't. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrifying. But at some level, I kind of, after this just continues and continues, I end up laughing a lot because I feel like I've taken this. I just feel like, the laughing Buddha who like sees everything as so absurd. It's just hard not to, you step out of it and you kind of witness it, and you have to, because, our eternal soul self knows that it's ridiculous and understands that this isn't everything,
Right.
and
Sometimes we do need that humor to, it's like certain types of music and stuff that you need to listen to kind of calm yourself down, because we're emotional beings.
right.
And Johnny Cerrucci and I are a lot alike in that we're so emotional that when we hear, stories, especially from your book,
Mhm.
the damage that's done to not only human beings, but to animals.
Oh yeah, that's
The
awful.
abuse of animals and all this, it
Yeah.
enrages us that we
Yeah.
want to do something, but we don't have enough people. We need the numbers to network together to fight against this. And that's why we're doing shows like this. I'm working on a documentary to bring awareness that, hey, revolution is coming.
Mhm.
People are finally, one of these days, people are going to finally, but they don't have direction.
Mhm.
They need
Yeah,
people.
Shannon, when I read your book about the children and the animals and things like that and what's going on with me, I just felt helpless and angry.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
telling Bill this too on the phone the other day. I told him I'm reading this book. I even text Johnny too. I told him I've been reading Shannon's book, Johnny, and I'm just pissed.
Yeah. I I know I'm really sensitive actually, in other ways, too, emotionally, and like highly empathetic. And so I do tend to want to share those kind of stories to reach other people on that level.
Absolutely.
Which I think we have to. I think, information can only go so far. People process it differently, can go in one ear and out the other. But what touches us, if you have any humanity remaining, is the emotional aspect of things. And
Yeah.
that's been used against us. We're constantly manipulated that way. I mean, the news is
Right.
very emotive, but like it twists and distorts everything, and it gets people. And I have a lot of compassion for people who have been fooled by the hoax, because they think they've been manipulated on, their better instincts, like against
Yeah.
they've been manipulated because of the, the virtue signaling and things like, because they're believing that they're helping people to wear a mask, they're helping people to get vaccinated, and they do it out of the goodness of their heart, because they don't know better. But they need to learn, they need to wake up, and hopefully people
Right.
are, because they're seeing that the vaccines aren't even working. I mean, at this point, I think most people can hopefully acknowledge they've double, triple, quadruple jabbed and they're getting COVID. I don't know how many people
Yeah.
that keep getting it.
And
I'm like,
sometimes you want to just shake them, because the
yeah,
thing of it is that it's like their house is on fire. You're not going to sit there and go, hello, your house is on fire. You need to get out of there right
right.
now.
I know.
No, you're going to want to kick the door down and say, come
Yeah.
on, let's get the hell out of here.
Then you look like a crazy person.
And
So it
then
doesn't
you,
even work.
absolutely.
Right. It's like, so you kind of have to go, excuse me, your house is on fire. Like, just to not like alarm them. And so
It's like, see that flame that's coming through the window? It's
Yeah.
coming for you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we have to show them, we have to prove to them that like the storm is coming. Okay. See those
Yeah.
clouds over there? And they're coming closer. You see that funnel shaped cloud
Right.
that's coming? It's going to take your house out. So, I want you to look at it, see, and no matter how a lot of people, well, why would you want to show people, the tragedy and all that? But
You
You
have to.
have
I mean,
to,
yeah.
you have to show them this is a result. Do you want this? Do you want this to happen? No,
No.
no.
And that's what, so my new book is called Shots Fired, about, the new vaccines and the war against humanity. And, basically it's touched on some of the themes that John and I wrote about in the Masquerade book, but I also bring in more about the EMFs, but also just go into a lot more detail about the vaccines and, excuse me, history of vaccines and, and unfortunately a lot of sad stories about what's happened to people, including amputees, multiple amputees. I mean, that's what keeps me awake at night. Sometimes some of these stories I've read and written about, it keeps me awake because I'm so upset for these people. I'm so upset that it's continuing, especially the children have died, the babies. And of course, there's this huge increase in miscarriages and stillbirths. I mean, it's definitely a depopulation tool, no question about that. And but also like a compliance tool, because there's ingredients that are just like the EMFs are helping to kind of dumb people down and, attack the frontal lobe and get them to kind of be, zombie like, hive mind. Sadly, but I think that I still have hope, because I think that we're stronger than that. I think that even if you've had the injections, you can detox and you can reclaim your humanity, because I think we're more than the flesh. We're more than we're not a sack of chemicals, right? We
Right.
have a lot more power than that. And so no matter how much it's taken me a long time to be able to face these things, like to me, it's like facing demons, facing these horrible things. It's
Absolutely.
very anxiety producing. A lot of people don't want to hear this stuff. They're like, don't tell me because it'll upset me. But it's like, you have to face being upset in order to not, because you're going to feel the anxiety anyway, because something's wrong.
Right.
And a lot of people go around with this kind of free floating anxiety. They're uncomfortable because they're not facing it, and facing it is difficult. But once you face it and you get through that, then you're a stronger person for it.
Absolutely.
And you're able to find something in yourself that still gives you peace and comfort, if you want to call that God, and the creator and whatever. I mean, this is a spiritual path too.
It is spiritual warfare. There are unseen forces behind all this. And you're right. This is what I've encountered with everybody that I've encountered, on these subjects, is that, they either want to stick their head in the sand and just wait till it's over, or some of them just throw up their hands as, oh, there's nothing we can do. And of course, if you don't do nothing, it's going to continue. But if we do something, work together, and network together, we can defeat. It's a defeated foe. It's just
and everything's contractual more than people realize. You're contracting, you're agreeing. Like, stop giving your consent. It's actually sometimes that simple. Sorry, James, you wanted to say
Well,
something?
that's what Bill and I were talking on the phone, Shannon, and you're talking about us being spiritual beings, and you said this word demon. And I told Bill the other day, I go, in the Bible, they say that the devil's the prince of the air, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, what's in the air?
Mm.
All this electric stuff and electromagnetic energy. And in Arthur Firstenberg's book, he writes these words that kind of haunting. He goes, they're talking about influenza coming out of the heavens like a thunderbolt.
Yep.
And the Bible says, doesn't Satan fall like a lightning bolt?
Interesting.
Ezekiel, and Ezekiel, I saw heaven. Jesus said, or was it Jesus said, I saw Satan fall, like a lightning bolt. So yeah.
I don't know why. A lot of people also think that, it's funny to me that, we grow up learning about the devil and all this, and yet, I mean, he's supposed to be like the prince of deception, right? And craft, like, and why people think they would just see this evil easily, like, and that it wouldn't be disguised. Of course it's disguised.
Absolutely.
It's always disguised as something good. Look at Bill Gates and his philanthropic, all his epic, like, philanthropic efforts all over the world. He's helping people, I mean, they're all taking It's all evil. It's disguised as good and helping humanity. The devil's not going to come with horns and a pitchfork and reveal himself that way. He's going to be smiling,
Absolutely.
he's going to be attractive, like Elon Musk. It's like it takes that form, and people being aware. I mean, this is a disguise. It's the snake in the garden. It's it's sneaky, and also I think it's so interesting.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. Sorry,
And,
what?
and he was the most beautiful thing, and we were kind of like seduced by the angels.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were. Yeah.
Yeah, it's seduction, and they're always seducing him. So that's what Hollywood does. It's the art of seduction. Like, we all get trapped in that.
And we all know why it was Eve that took the apple and initially. I mean, no offense, Shannon,
That's okay.
But
the women are easily manipulated. And
Yeah,
I
the
know a lot of
emotional
women hate to
aspect.
see that, and their emotions too.
Right.
But I believe she was worked on by the devil,
Right.
so she
Yeah,
can go
he's
work
been
on
in the
Adam.
garden for so long that he's
And this is the problem women still face today, and they need to get out of this trap.
Absolutely.
They're constantly deceived by that kind of male. Not you guys. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about. The
Yeah.
men
Absolutely.
that do that.
How I perceive Eve in the garden was just getting worked on by somebody who's smarter than her and manipulating the crap out of her.
Right. And it happens all the time. It's happened to me. I know so many women, especially when they're young. It's the Bluebeard story.
Bluebeard,
If you're
yeah.
familiar with that,
Or
he's
Svengali.
farming.
Better yet, the Svengali effect.
What's the Svengali effect?
Svengali was a man who was able to hypnotize and manipulate women, and he would coax them, to control them, to murder them. I believe they murdered. All I know is that Svengali just had this mesmerize. He was able to mesmerize women and control them.
Yeah, and women are taught. It's constantly reinforced in media that they're supposed to be attracted to these type of men. It's crazy. It's like they're supposed to be attracted to the con men, the confidence men, not the nice guy, like not the guy next door is a nice guy who's your friend. They need to be, they're supposed to be attracted to the mysterious one who doesn't reveal himself, who has secrets, the Bluebeard. I mean, again, Bluebeard had a closet full of skeletons from his past wives. That was the one room that his new young wife couldn't enter. He had wealth, he had a blue beard, and that's what was supposed to give him charisma, right? Yeah, and so he was like,
it just hit me what you're talking about right now. I started that book. Oh man, yes.
Oh, which book? Sorry, you started Bluebeard?
Johnny wrote Romans of Mass Destruction, Volume 1, and he's in there.
Right.
I didn't mean to interrupt, man. Beg your pardon. Yeah. I just was like, whoa! I was reading that.
Yeah, that's an important story, and especially for men too, because there's different kinds of Bluebeards in the world, and ways that we get seduced and and distracted. It's distraction. Yeah, his Bluebeard was distracting, from who he really was, and it took away from and so we have to trust our instincts in everything, and this is what we're constantly fighting against is this group, whatever you want to call it, the evil, whatever that's out there that's trying to control us, is always trying to get us to go against our instincts. And so like science, the new God of science says, don't pay attention to what your body tells you. Don't pay attention to, go to a doctor who's going to tell you what's wrong with you. A doctor, an outside force, something in a white coat is going to tell you, it's going to use technology to scan you. They're going to find out what's wrong. You can't just say, I know that when I am near the Wi-Fi router or the cell phone, I get a headache, or my body, it feels horrible. Everything, I feel like I want to throw up or whatever. That's psychosomatic. I mean, come on, like we're not allowed to trust our basic observations of reality and experience of reality. We're constantly giving away that authority. And the thing about that is a lot of people are they're comfortable giving it away, because what it means is when you're in your own power and your own authority, along with that comes responsibility. So you have to then be responsible for your choices and like what you do in the world. And you can't blame something on somebody else anymore. I'm not saying that we don't blame these evil bastards and these companies for what they're doing, but I'm saying that we can acknowledge it and try to do something, and we can take whatever steps we can. I mean, I know we're all in these different kinds of situations and different limitations, but there's always something you can do. There's always something. Like Bill was saying, like, if you just do nothing, obviously, then, you know, you did nothing and you can't do anything, but you can do something, and you can't fight the entire world. And the problem with, probably, James, you're feeling this too, and what kind of is burdens people when they're first dealing with the realization that their environment's been polluted this way and they've been attacked with these frequencies, and there are a lot of things with their physical bodies have been damaged, is you feel this kind of sense of the weight of the world on your shoulders, like, how am I going to fight this monster? How can I ever get rid of it? It's constantly encroaching, and it's so overwhelming when you realize that.
Oh,
But
I feel so helpless, and I'm so angry,
yeah,
and I'm just
and you're
like,
angry and you have to go through all that. But it's like a lot of things in life, you can't shoulder the cares of the world. That's not for you to do, so all you can do, and this will have a domino effect, all we can realize is that we can exact some kind of change in our own lives, in our own small world, and hope that has like a trickle effect or a domino effect. Because if we all were just doing any little thing, then a big change would happen. But you can't yourself make the big change happen. It's too much to shoulder, and you shouldn't think of it that way. You do the little things you can do for yourself, and it's like, just like, don't overdo it. Don't further burden yourself with this guilt or whatever, or like a
yeah, I have great guilt for like doing being on that phone with on the shows I was doing with the team. But I mean, at the same time, I was talking with Bill, and I'm like, hey man, this is bothering me. And we tried Faraday fabric, and then I tried 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And I tried muscling it, because like I was telling you, Shannon, it's very important to me. Just exactly what you're saying, man. I don't want to do nothing here, man.
Yeah.
I believe
and I've been there, because I finally realized I did the exact same thing at first. I thought I can just lessen my exposure. I'll use the dumb phone instead of smartphone, or I'll just use it less or whatever. And then I realized, at least for me, that wasn't working, and
yeah.
And so and I mean, and right now I'm kind of dealing with, like, so I'm not in the totally perfect situation with EMFs, because I'm on a laptop. I mean, I'm not using wireless, everything's plugged in, but there's the screens, I mean, the monitors, the LED. This is horrible for everybody. And I am doing research, and I'm writing, and I'm spending way too many hours a day doing this. And I've had to learn another lesson myself with this last book, that I took on too much in a short period of time. And that's been because the thing is, you're not going to be able to help anybody if you're not around anymore. Right. You're not going to be able to help anybody if you're sick. You're not going to be able to help them if you're having headaches constantly. So you have to first take care of yourself, and you might feel like, well, and we're taught in our culture, like, to push through pain, like you're describing, like when I first felt it too, I was like, well, I'm just going to ignore this. I ignored it for a long time, I think. And then suddenly it occurred to me, I'm like, why am I ignoring this? Like, this hurts a lot. Like, I'm ignoring it. Why? Like, that's so messed up. What's wrong with me? And I still do it. I do it. I need my partner to constantly remind me, like, like, we help each other to remind each other to rest, and not, to rest, to exercise, to balance things, and to allow yourself to live your life because one of the things with the technology and all this stuff going on, and even with this information wars, is I keep coming back to realizing that it's stealing our time from us. Like, how much time goes by when I'm just researching something or trying to correct something in my writing or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, when I'm online, going online is like, will suck your life away from you, so we have to be really vigilant about how much time we spend online. It's a slippery, it'll suck you in, and it's designed to do that. And because ultimately, like we could be saying, well, you can excuse it and say, well, I've got to fight this. I got to look this up or whatever. But meanwhile, your life's slipping away. Your family's neglected. Your personal life, everything's neglected. Is that worth it? It's not. The means to the end should not be, what I'm saying? Like, you're always saying, well, you need to stop justifying the means to the end. Like, just step back and take one day at a time, one step at a time.
Well,
you don't
plan yourself out. What I had to do, because I was working I was doing Johnny's show almost every day while I was working. So I was juggling my job, being on that, and then I was going home at night, and I've been working on Johnny's books, visualizing his books, which it's my love, it's my joy to be able to take pages from his book, because there's so much information.
Yeah.
And, you can only get so much from a book. How they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, even a video multiplies that by hundreds.
Sure.
More people are willing to sit down, more people watch YouTube videos
Yeah.
or watch TV, period. There's always a saying, reading's great, but TV is gooder. But my point is I was spending all this time, and then I realized, well, do things in increments. Sure, you have to do your 8-hour job. That's a given. You have to do that. Then instead of spending hours working on a project, come home, work 2 hours,
Right.
and take a break. And then if it's a big project like your project is, what I did after every project that I did, my last documentary was almost 3 hours long. I mean, that's how long chapter 3 of Disciples of Ra was.
Yeah.
So I did a 3-hour, and it was taxing. It took me 2 weeks to do it. But then I had to go camping. I had to go somewhere just to get away from it all.
Yeah.
So budget your time,
Hey, Bill.
make time for your family, make time for this, and then at least once a month, go detox, go camping, get away from everything, shut everything down.
Yeah, you got to do
Or
it.
even if you have to just shut everything down for a day or
Yeah,
two.
you don't even have to go anywhere. Just shut it
Yeah,
down. Get offline.
absolutely.
What were you going to say, James?
Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to tell Bill, he's really busy, and when he's all said and done with everything, I call him at 8:30 at night and keep him on the phone for an hour. Thanks, Bill. Sorry, thanks, Bill. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right.
That's awesome.
Shannon, I was working with the team when I got ill, and I was so stoked, and when I got sick and couldn't do it anymore, I was heartbroken, and I call Bill about once a week and check in, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take care of yourself though, and we get, I felt that this is true with a lot of people I met with the electrosensitivity, is that they're kind of like the type A types, whatever you want to call it, like they want to do stuff, like always like ambitious people, constantly doing things, burning the candle at both ends, so the relationship there is adrenal exhaustion, right? Because the effect of the fields themselves harm adrenals, and then you couple that with not sleeping properly and so your adrenals are worn out, and a lot of these symptoms are just adrenal exhaustion. That's long COVID adrenal exhaustion. It's like you gotta support your adrenals, and the main thing is resting.
Absolutely.
Really resting.
Sleep, good diet, and lots of water is
Well, not too much
essential.
water though.
Not too much. You could get waterlogged. That's true.
Well, and also
You have to
mineral water.
hydrate. You have to do
The
some
thing,
hydrate.
the thing about water is it's if you don't have minerals in it, especially, it's a solvent, right? So it'll pull it can helps you detox because it can pull heavy metals out, but it'll pull the other minerals out,
Right.
and then you get your imbalance, right?
Absolutely.
So you need the good minerals added to it. If you don't have a good spring water already, I mean, the other reason I think been doing really well the last couple of years is we drink spring water. We have fresh mountain spring water. That's our water for everything.
Right.
And we have creek water. I drink out of the creek. We have such a clean creek here that I've never felt comfortable anywhere else just drinking water from a stream. But
Absolutely.
I do.
We have a stream.
Yeah.
We have a stream in Ashland.
I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, we have a stream up in Ashland, Oregon, up on what's called the Green Springs. And I forgot the name of but you can go and take bottles and it's just
Yeah.
fresh spring water. And of course, I use a filter, but yet I also add to the water. Sometimes some of the waters that we even get certain waters at the store, not the plastic bottled waters, but the stuff that has, essential minerals and stuff like that, because you can't just drink straight water. You got to have stuff with it.
I take this ginger root with some cucumbers, mint, and lemon, and I put it in a Ninja and make this green goop concentrate out of it. And then I take about two tablespoons of that and fill it up about a liter.
Okay.
And what it seems to really seriously alkalize me. Like I feel so like I just got out of a lake or the shower or something.
Yeah,
So
even lemon water. Lemon water.
Clay. I was gonna say bentonite clay.
Bentonite clay. I use that when I'm cleansing. When I'm doing my cleanse every 3 months, I use bentonite clay.
Well, I was gonna say I've known quite a few people who, or at least a few enough, who've said that they've definitely reduced their electro hypersensitivity through doing the clay. Like ingesting clay baths over time, and because it pulls the heavy metals out. It's also mineralizing, and it's the quality of the clay matters. Somebody hooked me up with some really good stuff recently for trading for my books. It's so fine. It's like it dissolves better. You can really drink it, huh?
It's a clay, you said?
Clay, yeah, bentonite clay.
It's more like dirt. It's like you're.
Well, this one is such a beautiful fine clay powder.
Clay powder.
I'll have to send you a link because I can't remember what it's called right now. But there's a lot of testimonials on there about autism reversing in their children from doing the clay baths. And I noticed in myself, since I started a few months ago, that if I take it, I do it on an empty stomach at night. You want to go easy, because it will detox.
Right. It takes every metal. You can't have any metal near it. It takes everything out. And the reason for the autism is it takes out the mercury.
Exactly.
The mercury poisoning. That's what I took, because as a kid, like a dummy I was, I used to play with mercury as a kid.
I've done that. I did too. I know.
You did that too?
Yeah.
So, and they say the only way, when they used to miners, because you have to mine it.
Yeah.
What the miners had to do after work is they would have to go to a dry sauna and sweat, because it gets in their pores.
Oh yeah, the sweating.
And so you have to sweat them out.
Sweating. Yeah. The sweating is huge. He made a huge difference for me. That I would say, like, if I was gonna say just a handful of things to do for detoxing: sweating, the clay, and avoiding exposures, like getting out in nature, deep, grounding, and the Epsom salt baths. Those are like, and for the headaches, the turmeric really helped me a lot for headaches. And I still use it for that. So I'll make a tea with the powder. That's also helps support your liver. I also did coffee enemas for a long time. I think that really helped me, except that I'm really sensitive to caffeine. So I had to do like a really tiny amount. And with anything with detoxing, go slow. I know you get anxious to get it out, but you can do more damage by rushing it. And you just support your body through it. Rest.
You have to slowly.
Herbs for your liver and kidneys, supported, if you're sweating, don't sweat a lot at once. Oh my God, go slowly with that. That can be, my partner got so sick when he did sauna. So sick.
I got dehydrated.
So he was too dehydrated. He almost had to go to the hospital. Like James went to the hospital. You got to go really careful with the saunas. They're very powerful, but I think
you should only do like dry saunas. You should do
no
more than 15 minutes. No more than 15 minutes. Some people are in there for a long time. I was in there one day for 30 minutes and I was I almost fainted. I almost passed out. Yeah.
You can build up to a lot, but you got to go slowly. And I used to do these saunas when I lived in DC still, before I got really sick, but I went to this Korean spa. It turned out later the scandal came out that they were like enslaving the Koreans there, like using them as sex workers and crazy
man.
stuff. You know, it's horrible, really sad. But you know, it was like a family atmosphere going there as like a visitor. There were like Korean families there, and those Koreans would go in these amazing saunas. There was an amethyst room, it was all amethyst gems, the whole thing. It was a big dome.
Seen
It was
those, yeah.
heated to like 175 degrees. I remember this. That was the hottest one. I couldn't go in there for like 5 minutes. I went back in and out. There was this woman sleeping. She was snoring. Korean woman
Yeah.
lying around sleeping in there in
I've seen that
175
too.
degrees.
And another thing is some places, now I had a gym membership to a local gym that had a pool. And they
Mm.
converted it into a salt water pool.
Nice.
I can't stand chlorine.
Is there a
Yeah,
saltwater
neither can I.
pool?
But some places, if you check around, there are some places have salt water pools.
I need to find one
And
near
there's-
me because I love swimming, and I swim at
Yeah.
that one spa near you in
Right.
Ashland, the
Yeah.
hot springs, when I get a chance. They don't heat that pool though, so you know it's cold in the winter.
Oh,
But,
really?
But I
bet-
go in the winter. I'll swim in the winter after you go in the hot soak, you know, and then swim.
Right, to
You
do the
that,
polar
but
plunging,
yeah,
because that's also good
plunge.
for your pores.
yeah.
That's
Oh yeah, the
because
cold
when you
plunge.
start sweating, you sweat all the toxins out, and then
Yeah.
you dive in the cold pool to not only cleanse yourself, but also close up the pores. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
good
That's
stuff.
true.
It's
But
good stuff.
yeah, I was gonna look up. I'm like, I wish there was a pool closer to me. I wish I could swim it. If I could swim every day, that would be amazing, especially in
What I
salt.
like is trying to find hot springs nearby.
Yeah,
There's
I
not
know.
too many. I mean, like you said, the
Yeah,
only
went
near
to one
one
in
near
Alpha.
me is the one you go to.
right.
And
The
but,
problem is right now with that, when you share a hot spring with a lot of people, they're all detoxing. You're all kind of in. It's a little bit like ooh, because it's
It's
not
like
because
a
of germs, but
stew,
because of like
yeah.
nanobots.
That's
I
why
don't
it's
know.
always good to have your own. If you can make
Oh my
your
gosh,
own,
right.
have your
Right.
own personal. But even if you get because I had a spa for a while, and
yeah.
it was one of
Nice.
those inflatable ones, and I was there in the
Oh.
wintertime. It was great. It was nice
Oh,
and
wow.
warm, and you could
Yeah.
get in it and everything. But
Well, I
it's
finally, okay, I'm super excited about this, so I'll share it with you. I
Yeah.
finally got this. It was a rusty old bathtub somebody had dug into their ground. They gave us, and we kind of fixed it up. We, covered up the rust, and I have it outside. There's no space in our house. It's kind of small, for a tub, and it was just a shower. It came with a small shower. It took us almost a year to get hot water installed, and with a propane off-grid thing. We finally got the hot water because there was a whole bunch of other things we had to work on first in the house, and then. So I actually have a hose now from the hot water thing outside to my tub outside. So I can
Sweet.
finally have a hot tub, with the Epsom salt out. It's outside. So, I have to, yeah. So I've done it in the winter here, but, I haven't done it during the snowstorms or anything, but, in between that. But, I was going to say, I'm in this great property, but, I don't have financial means. So I want to just tell people that, because I know that feels like, you feel like you can't do all this that I'm talking about because of, limited financial means, but we're caretaking, I would look into caretaker opportunities off grid if you can't afford a property. That's been what's worked out for us. And I mean, we were renting our last place in Arizona, but we were also kind of caretaking, so we got a discount on the rent.
right.
And
That is so cheap for us, Shannon. That is so cool.
yeah, I mean, so and I want to also say that, and I probably wrote this in the book, but it bears repeating, and for people who haven't read it, is I was in Washington D.C., which is, I didn't know at the time, but is like the most electrically polluted city in the world, apparently, and I was living, I had a business, I was busy, I was like, probably stayed up too late most of the time. And I always been kind of sensitive though, in terms of noise and that. And I think it's because of mercury toxicity, being like hypersensitive to light and to noise and smells. And I didn't want to live in the city. I liked nature. I wanted to live outdoors. I actually always wanted the lifestyle I'm living now. And I had no idea how I could do it. And I constantly would like battle myself with it and say, well, I have to stay in the city because of my job. I don't have money. I don't have savings. I have debt. But when it came, like push came to shove and I got as sick as I did, and it was like I had chronic migraines because of my neighbor's Wi-Fi and I was completely miserable. I had a pretty big motivation to leave, and and I had a partner supporting me. I mean, he didn't have a job or money either. Both of us were facing kind of like leaving that security, but we had the moral support, emotional support, and we found ways. And like, mother necessity is the mother invention, and you will find a way if you have to. So why wait until you have to? Like, why wait until you're desperate? I mean, I guess when you're desperate, you get a lot more creative in your thinking. Maybe you're a little more open-minded. But I
It
encourage people
seems
to
like a
think
lot
about,
of an old dream a lot of us have too. Like, oh, if I
yeah,
ever get money, I'll get a place out in the country. Or if I ever
right.
get that, I'll go out into the country. It's really kind of a natural thing. I think it's something that we might naturally really like. Maybe most of us don't know it, but we might actually miss it. Really, really want something like
Yeah,
that.
I think so. And I think that the thing is there, you know, you you're gonna wait. If you think that way and you don't do something, you're gonna wait. Your life's gonna flash before your eyes, it's gonna be over. It's like if you wait until you got the money saved or whatever, it probably will be pretty late. By that time, you'll be so disabled from all your exposures that you'll have to spend it on, taking care of yourself or somebody else taking care of you. You won't be able to enjoy that. That's what we see all the time. People in their old age they're disabled in our country. They're not able-bodied. They're also mentally, become mentally disabled. They have dementia. They need to go into a home or something. They probably thought their whole lives that they would save up and go live in the country or whatever,
Right,
and they never did it. And also waiting to have a vacation is like, don't wait. Again, you don't need to spend a lot of money. Just
right.
drive off somewhere, do something, and to take a break,
Also
even if you
too,
stay home, like take a break, take breaks, take
right.
regular breaks. Don't wait to the end of the year.
Yeah, some people are like these campgrounds that I've been to. Some of these campgrounds are so far off the grid that there's people who are camp hosts. This last weekend, we went camping at Whitehorse Park in near Grants Pass, Oregon. And it's far enough out, even though there's like an RV park next door, and there is still some Wi-Fi, but it's not as powerful as it is in the city. So there's opportunities in campgrounds,
Yeah,
working for the county, which is, or the
right.
state, where you're off the grid, you're living in the park. Sure, there's people who do bring their
Yeah.
satellite dishes and stuff like that, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot as, compared to what it is in the
Yeah,
city.
it's like you can, and this is the thing, if you're looking for complete pristine whatever, you just aren't going to find it,
No,
unfortunately. And that's what we have to kind of realize and accept, because I mean, I admit I'm a purist. I want everything to be pure everything, and I I have to kind of let go of that a lot. I get a little bit,
what we need, what we
yeah,
need is to find a millionaire
yeah.
that's buying up lots of land like Bill
I
Gates.
was saying, yeah.
And because even Ted Turner, he started it years ago. He owns
Mm,
thousands of acres in Montana, which he's not doing anything with. Makes you wonder what he's got going, because that's
yeah,
thousands of acres, that's hundreds of miles.
that's
Um,
amazing. Yeah,
you
that would
know,
be
I thought
ideal.
about moving to Wyoming. Wyoming is so, but you're too far out. You don't have anything. It's nothing. You have wildlife, you have trees, then you have to
Yeah,
bear, you got to bear with the winters
that's a crazy
in
winter. Yeah.
in Wyoming. And but there's no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
There's none of all,
Well, you'd be surprised, actually.
yeah,
I don't
true.
mean to be like that, but you got to be careful, because sometimes you go out there and it's something unexpected, a military something, or
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like, there's harp in Alaska. You could go out to somewhere in Alaska and you're right next to harp. I mean,
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not always the solution to like, you got to see what kind of wilderness you're getting yourself involved in,
And you don't want to be on some tropical island because you're dealing with storms and everything
Right.
else.
Then you've
It's
got
not
right.
always paradise.
Yeah, you gotta take in consideration the elements and what you're gonna have to contend with, because and it's not, what's really difficult, and my heart goes out to people who are not. I've always been an outdoorsy type. I was a tomboy growing up. I played outside a lot. I can take to this lifestyle easily, and so can my partner. Not everybody can, and it can be more emotionally traumatizing for them to, you got to weigh these things, like, because you
Absolutely.
don't want to like get yourself in a situation where you didn't realize like what it meant to heat your home with firewood.
Right. You don't want to be somebody
And-
who's in Los Angeles, downtown Los
Right.
Angeles, and then
Shannon was talking about
move,
somebody
and
was
then,
reading about all the little critters you had to deal with.
Well,
yeah,
then there's that. I mean, well, gosh, that was Arizona. Out here, that's not even really a big deal. Although we have
Right.
carpenter ants are kind of the bane of our existence here, but that's nothing compared. Arizona, I couldn't believe, you just wouldn't believe that the desert. I've never seen so much wildlife in every kind of form, but especially insects and rodents. It's, I mean, you're in, I don't know what part of Texas you're in, James.
I live over between Austin and San Antonio, but I grew up over in El Paso, which isn't too far
Okay,
from
then you know
Tucson.
what it's like out there. Yeah, I was gonna say, because Austin's not, that's not the desert. That's that's a totally different environment. And
Paso was about 6-7 hours from Tucson.
yeah, okay. So I was outside of Tucson, and which I wrote about in my book. But
Wow. Okay. So
yeah, I was out. I was an hour northeast of Tucson. No, sorry, an hour and a half drive. So it was like 60 miles or something. And Benson was the closest town, but that's like some serious wilderness. And I mean, we had bears and bobcats and mountain lions and javelina and rattlesnakes and Gila monsters and jackrabbits and but like the insects were in the monsters are so intense.
In your book, you really took me there. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's like,
and I was jumping the other day when I moved the table. I was mowing the side of my house.
Yeah.
And I always check the side of my house in case they sneak a smart meter on me.
Oh,
But
good.
I still have the old meter. And just as I lifted up this table, I don't know if he was a salamander or what he was like a lizard,
A gecko.
And it could be a gecko, it's, I'm not out in the desert. So, you rarely see those things. I mean, we do have skunks and we have raccoons, and we definitely have possums. Possums get as big as dogs, know. But yeah, if you get jumped by that, can you imagine down there in Texas? You've got not water moccasins, whatever those snakes are down there, and all we have to contend with is rattlesnakes.
Yeah, there's supposed to be rattlesnakes, but you really don't see them. I mean, we saw them like on a daily basis.
They don't attack people. They kind of keep to themselves. They're not predatorial like your water moccasins and your
rattlesnakes aren't they're not trying to attack you.
No,
I had one strike at me because I surprised it, and it surprised me, and I jumped. Yeah. What's that?
That's why I said, dang, Shannon, that's freaking wild.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I jumped up and I did this jump that I didn't even know I could do. It was like vertical and horizontal at the same time. I jumped.
I don't know my own strength.
I got out of that striking distance really quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, you become a lot more in tune with nature, and it's cool. It's like you become more like a wild animal. You sense things around you, become more aware of what's around you.
In other words, you have to gradually work your way
it sounds like that. It sounds
everything
like
just like everything, just like the cleansing, just like the detoxing and all that. You just have to work into them slowly.
I was reading how you used to go out to the Potomac and sit by there.
Yeah, I did. I went to the Potomac. There's a couple of parks around, but Potomac was one of them. I walked barefoot, through any of the forests I could get. Oh, I know what you're talking about when I go camping. Yeah, it was crazy what we did. When we often will sit at home and just go like, remember when we did this? Isn't that crazy?
I
But
go barefooted all the time. I'm
no,
not,
yeah,
I
no,
hate
not that
wearing
part of it,
shoes.
but the fact that we drove like the half hour every night, almost every night for months to set up a tent to sleep, so I couldn't sleep in my apartment, to sleep out by the river. And you know what? My partner went back to visit his family recently, said that campground changed. Something got added to it because we found this like dead zone. We were like, just a miracle, like we're like, wow, there's like almost no reception here and it feels really good. And it was free camping and it was pretty much
Wow.
empty in the fall. And he went back and visited and he wanted to go he camped there one night. He's like, it wasn't the same. He's like, something changed. They must have added something, and that's so sad. That's what's really heartbreaking too, is we left Arizona and I wrote about like, what hurt me to think about leaving, what that would mean. And I get reports from people who stayed, who knew what I went through there, why I had to leave because of the smart meters, the smart grids. So as an update to the book, because this information isn't in there, our utility company forced the smart meters on us. We did everything in our power to fight them. We actually have the support of the community, which was really good. There were a couple other people like me in the community that were living there for the same reasons. They'd come out there, given up a lot to be out there. And so we were like pretty sure that one of the motivations because they were already remotely reading the meters through the digital, on the line, like through the lines. It wasn't wireless, which isn't great in terms of dirty electricity, but something you can generally filter, unlike the pulsing radiation. And so there was no, they didn't have meter readers coming out, so there was no motivation for them. Didn't make sense. And the first thing they'd said when we moved there was like, we asked about smart meters, said, oh, we're not going to do smart meters. It said on their website, like, we don't have any plans to do smart meters. Don't worry, it's not that, right? So all of a sudden they're trying to sneak it. They weren't even telling us. And we just happened to hear about it from one of the workers who was out, he happened to spill the beans. I didn't know, like, anyway, I was talking about why I was out there in radio frequencies, like, oh, well, guess what? We're putting smart meters on. I'm like, you're what? It's like, yeah, you're going to be the first community. You're the pilot one. And I'm like, we're what? So we got them to at least delay it a year. So by the end, a few of us moved anyway, I'm going on too long here. My point is, we were telling them that they're definitely going to piggyback 5G on that stuff, on the, they're going to use it for 5G. They didn't even we had no Gs out there. There was like almost no cell phone reception in the whole valley. And that's why I was out there. And people, they used their cell phones with their Wi-Fi at home. Like they had a way of doing that. And the internet was like DSL landlines. So and all the neighbors were kind of like almost half a mile apart. So like your neighbor's Wi-Fi is not going to bother you. If they really want to do that, they could do that. And so we told them, like, we thought they were going to do 5G and they said, no, that's ridiculous. Well, guess what happened within this last year? 5G. They put 5G on the smart meter relays along the power lines. And now one of my friends who also happened to be, this is what happened to her. She got, not just stuck with the smart meter on her house. I think she had them put it on a pole. That's the only thing they would consent to. They put one of their relays right outside her house. Like, you don't know where they're going to put those things. So that's extra exposure. And now she's getting 5G there too. And it's like, she doesn't want to move. She bought the place. I mean, she doesn't feel sensitive, but she knows it's not healthy, and she doesn't want that happening there besides the surveillance. So we're hearing about that. And then now they're also talking about using a satellite radar system for surveillance of some property there that's a communal property to make sure it's not vandalized. It's like this thing that can penetrate down. I mean,
security,
like, people, it's just destroying. And I've been hearing about the weird behavior of ants and birds dying. Oh, so they have a bird sanctuary there. And I've been hearing reports of all the birds dying, like mysteriously. And people are dying. I mean, people are dying. It's an elderly community. It's a retirement community. And they've been getting vaccinated too. And, they're having strokes and they're dying. And it's just really heart-wrenching. And I probably will never go back and visit again, which is good because I don't think I could handle seeing it like
Right,
what's changed,
right.
you know, in the wildlife, the changes in the wildlife and the people and
Well, that's what's sad. It not only is affecting humans, it's affecting animals as well.
right,
And
right.
all of nature. I mean, it's just horrible what's going on, and we need to bring awareness. Um, your books can be found on Amazon. I got to wrap it up here.
Yeah,
We've been
sorry.
on
I'm
almost
yeah,
2 hours, which is
right.
fine.
We
I'm not
are.
worried, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sensitive to you two, especially James. Um, just check out her books on Amazon. Let us know when your new book comes out. We're
Yeah,
really
it
looking
should be
forward to it.
hopefully next month. I mean, I'm really in the thick of editing and proofing. It's gonna be a few weeks more.
Right.
But yeah, not just on, I mean, the Wi-Fi Refugee is also on other platforms besides
Mhm.
Amazon, but the co-authored one with John Hamer is not just on Amazon right now.
Right.
But you can find my author page there under Shannon Rowan, and you can go to wi-fi-refugee.com, but it's wi-fi-refugee.com.
Right.
And I will have an update. I haven't updated anything on there in a while because I've been so busy with the book, but I will be updating. I'll let everybody know who's on my email list, you know, that you can
Sure.
join the email list on my homepage. I'll let you know when the new book's out. And the new book is about it's about the vaccines primarily, but a lot of stuff about also mind control and EMFs and, you know, chemical
Right.
assaults and things like all the fun things like that. Fun
Yeah,
bedtime reading.
that'll be great because
Keep you up at
that's
night.
kind of in line with what my new documentary is going to be
Mm.
about and stuff. And I collect this part of this interview will be part of that. And,
Right.
anything I can gather, a lot of stuff I can get off the internet, which is great and stuff. So,
Well, I'm
uh,
also citing a lot of Johnny's books are some citations of Johnny Search's books are in my new one
good.
too.
Oh,
So
good, good. Well,
yeah,
he'll be, you'll like that.
I had to kind of stop reading his books because I felt like I was just gonna like plagiarize the whole thing. So
Yeah, as
I was like
long as you
taking so much of it.
citation, long
I'm
as you
citing him.
footnote,
Yeah,
as
yeah, it's
long as you
footnoted.
footnote and
Yeah,
cover your bases there. So I want to thank you, James, for joining us. I've been wanting to get you two together and because you
Thanks,
yeah,
guys
Bill.
share
shoot.
Thanks,
so much
Shannon.
in common there. So I
Yeah,
hope,
keep your chin up. Things will get better and you know, start taking care of yourself. This is a lesson for you to take care of yourself, I think. So
yeah,
don't forget that.
Yes, ma'am. I do appreciate everything you've done. Both y'all, I read about your partner. You're kind of like a team. I look up to that and just thank you for everything you all done.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
all right. Well, thanks for joining us today. And wow, we still got a lot to cover. Maybe once the book comes out, we'll probably
Yeah.
do another show, and hopefully Johnny will be able to join us.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to
That's
do
the
that.
problem with everybody being on the East Coast. It's the same thing with
Sure.
your other co-author, John
Yeah.
Hammer. So we
I
just got to
know.
do what we can do. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well,
All
you
right,
guys
great.
take care. And
Yeah, let me know, Bill, if you do that. If you do another show,
Oh.
Shannon and Johnny, that would be fun.
Oh, it'd
Yeah.
be great. It'll be great. So, all right.
Yeah,
Take
anytime
care.
I can. Sorry. Thanks so much. Yep.
Talk
And
to you
sorry
again.
I've been a little bit unavailable, but or hard to pin down, I should say. But yeah.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah.
So,
All right, guys.
God bless y'all. You all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
you too. Bye-bye.